is that this wasn't cut from the games for being a crazy or bad feature. It was only cut due to technical limitations. Speaking on the matter in an interview within the Japanese exclusive book Pokédex, Pokemon creator Satoshi Tajiri said the following: "We also thought about making one player pay money in addition to their trade when there was an obvious difference in the value of two Pokemon being traded, but implementing Pokemon monetary values was beyond the limits of our programming. Transferring money in the game is very different from wiring money in real life, and there were difficulties getting it to work on Game Boy. There were just too many obstacles to overcome to make it happen. We had no choice but to focus on what we wanted most and give up on the rest. In this case, being able to trade Pokemon was our top priority, so we cut the monetary value feature." As Tajiri says, this also means that each Pokemon would have had a set monetary value associated with them for this purpose, a feature which would have drastically changed the gameplay as well as the overall feel of the games, had the Game Boy been just a little bit more powerful and had allowed Game Freak to include this. By the way, this interview that I just referenced was translated by Pokemon historian Dr. Lava, along with some other stuff that I will be referring to in this video as well, so a big shout out goes to him. For Gold, Silver, and Crystal, we've got an interesting fact concerning Charizard. More specifically, how the origins of Mega Charizard X might actually date all the way back to the Gen 2 games. In Charizard's Gold Pokédex entry, it says the following: "If Charizard becomes furious, the flame at the tip of its tail flares up into a whitish blue color. Charizard has never been seen before with a whitish blue tail flame, except in its Mega X form, which fits this description perfectly, especially because it is often mentioned in the Dex entries of other Mega Evolutions that they become extremely angry and aggressive upon Mega Evolving, which fits this Dex entry as well. We also know that in all likelihood, Game Freak has looked into Pokemon's past for other Mega Evolutions too, as we can see with this mystery Pokemon from the anime that heavily resembles Mega Gyarados. This may technically be speculation, but only because we can't directly ask Game Freak about it. As far as we can tell on our own, it seems very possible and even likely that we could all have this Dex entry to thank for the amazing design that is Mega Charizard X. For Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, we have one that is not only really weird, but also relates very heavily to current events in the Pokemon community. It's no secret that humanoid Pokemon, and especially humanoid starter Pokemon, are a bit divisive. People generally have a strong distaste for humanoid starters, and have been begging Game Freak to go with less humanoid starters instead. However, this sounds like it's actually the result of a bizarre design philosophy that dates all the way back to Gen 3, where Game Freak are intentionally wanting to disappoint us with these starter evolutions. In another translated interview, this time from Nintendo Dream Magazine, series art director Ken Sugimori said the following: "I thought about how wide the variety of Pokemon could be for Ruby and Sapphire, and wanted to push the envelope of what would be accepted. So the first one I made was Blaziken. I wondered if people would go for such a humanoid Pokemon. I was intentionally testing the waters. Over the years, we've developed an image of what a Pokemon looks like, but this time we decided to push those boundaries and weaken the idea of what can't be a Pokemon. If it appears in Pokemon, then it is a Pokemon." Sugimori then goes on to talk about how Torchic is based on a painted chick, which was a thing in Japan where baby chicks would be painted different colors and sold at festivals. Once those chicks grew up though and weren't so cute anymore, they would often be thrown away or abandoned, which Sugimori says he tried to replicate with Torchic and its evolutions, saying, "We wanted people raising them to feel that sense of disappointment, while also acquiring something more powerful." Piecing all of this together, it certainly feels like the painted chick philosophy has maybe extended from Blaziken and has been applied to other starters as well. And personally, I love Sugimori, but I cannot remotely fathom why Game Freak would intentionally want to make Pokemon, Blaziken or otherwise, that were meant to disappoint people. But hey, Pokemon is still thriving over 20 years later, so they're obviously doing something right. Now we come to our first remake of the video with Fire Red and Leaf Green. The following information comes from Cut Content website, The Cutting Room Floor, which I will also be referring to for other facts in this video as well, so a big shout out goes to them too. Within the data of Fire Red and Leaf Green, there are several unused maps. Some of these maps include the maps of houses, one of which, according to the Cutting Room Floor, is located on Route 19, which is where a house also was in Yellow version, and it's where you could play the Surfing Pikachu minigame. Meaning that it's very possible that there were originally plans to include this minigame in the remakes as well. For the original Sinnoh games, you may remember how back in 2020, the source code of Diamond and Pearl was leaked. Well, this revealed to us a lot of interesting info, such as early and cut designs of Pokemon, but it also revealed some story differences to the games as well, including the fact that you at one point had a dad in these games. Within the earliest build of these games that could be accessed from these leaks, there are a number of story differences at the beginning of the game, including Professor Rowan greeting you right outside of your door when you first leave your house, who prompts you to go to Lake Verity instead of Berry. And then, upon talking to Professor Rowan at Lake Verity, someone who is reportedly your dad, according to the Cutting Room Floor, arrives to talk to you as well and says that you should head to Professor Rowan's lab to return the Pokedex that he forgot there, which is what ultimately gives you that excuse to head over there and start the game. It seems that following Norman's appearance in Ruby and Sapphire, Game Freak were going to keep your dad's presence alive in Diamond and Pearl as well. But apparently, they decided to cut him for some reason for the final games, and to this day, we have not seen the father of the player character make an appearance since. For Heart Gold and Soul Silver, there's actually some cut content as well, if you can believe it, since these games just packed in every bit of content that they possibly could. But originally, there was going to be an item in these games called the Photo Album that would store the photos that you're able to take throughout the game, and presumably allow you to view them wherever. In the final games, however, the photos are stored in the PC instead. Now we're on to Gen 5, and for Black and White, a crazy thing about these games is that they were originally going to feature multiple, completely different professors. The final games have Professor Juniper and her father Cedric, which are the remnants of this idea. And while Cedric is a researcher, he's not really a full-blown Pokemon professor the way that Juniper is, or Professor Oak is, or any of the other legitimate Pokemon professors are. In Sugimori's words, up until halfway through development, both professors were actually men. We'd received orders with very unpleasant requirements, that one professor should be fat and the other one old. Now, you may have heard about this part before, but the side of this that I want to bring attention to is more about Sugimori's next comment. He says, after Juniper was changed into a woman, we revised Cedric's design as well, in order to make him look like he could actually be the other professor's father. So basically, the relationship between these two characters was changed drastically by their redesign, and their entire dynamic was changed compared to what it was before. While we don't know what the relationship was between these original professors, we pretty much know that it wasn't a parent-child relationship like in the final games, since Sugimori says that Cedric was redesigned to be the other professor's father, meaning that he wasn't before. Therefore, it seems as if these original professors were more independent of each other, and possibly just worked together, or were potentially going to be version-exclusive professors. That idea is very interesting as well, considering that Pokemon Scarlet and Violet recently did version-exclusive professors for the first time, and they are games that have very heavy ties to Unova. That side of it is just speculation, of course, but I personally find it extremely intriguing how all of this seems to come together so well. For Black and White 2, we've got an extremely interesting and frankly amazing bit of world building and character design. Black and White 2 obviously center around Ghetsis and his desire to use Kyurem to basically wipe out and or freeze over Unova, and there is a connection between these two that I believe most haven't seen. Ghetsis is well known for having the right side of his body visibly disfigured. His right eye is covered with an eye patch, his right arm is always concealed, and even the right half of his mouth can be seen drooping in his sprite art and whenever he talks in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. These design traits, while being interesting enough on their own, actually connect to Kyurem, as Kyurem is also disfigured on the right side of its body as well. Its right horn on its head is shorter and seemingly busted off, its right wing is shorter as well, and the right side of its jaw is more jagged and roughly shaped compared to its left side, likely foreshadowing the connection between it and Ghetsis, which is really cool. X and Y have got something cool to bring to the table as well, and that is potential cut Pokemon. We haven't seen a lot of this kind of stuff from the newer Pokemon games, but there is evidence of it existing in X and Y, as according once again to the cutting room floor, the models of the Kalos Pokemon in these games are named with an earlier index order than their final National Pokedex order. This puts the Kalos Pokemon in a random order, but with many of the evolution lines still sitting next to each other properly. That is where Bergmite and Avalugg come into the picture, however, because while these two also sit together, there is a spot between them for a Pokemon that was completely removed from this internal list, which seems to indicate that it could have been a middle evolution for these two Pokemon that was planned at one point, but then cut from the games later on. There is also a second entry in this internal order that has been removed as well, and it sits between Xerneas, Yveltal, and Zygarde and the Kalos mythical Pokemon, Diancie, Hoopa, and Volcanion, potentially indicating that another legendary or mythical was planned for Kalos as well. In ORAS, a neat detail that was included in these remakes was the canonical ages of many of the game's characters. Mostly revealed through the Hoenn News Network program that you can view on the Pokénav, the characters with their ages specified include Mr. Stone, who is 52, his son Steven is confirmed to be 25, Captain Stern is 57, Mr. Briny is 72, Professor Cosmo is 40, Professor Birch is 35, Wally is just 10 years old, and the player characters Brendan and May are 12. For good measure, Mr. Stone's first name is also confirmed here as well, and it is specified to be Joseph. For the Alola games, we've got something cool that actually connects to the real world and that actually happened just this year in 2023. A new species of cockroach was recently discovered in Singapore by entomologists Fu Maosheng and Christian C. Lucanius, and was named Noticola pheromosa, after the Pokemon Pheromosa from Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. The two chose the name because they are Pokemon fans, and because of the similarities between Pheromosa and the cockroach. And to top it all off, the article that published the discovery was published on February 27th of 2023, which is Pokemon Day. Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee rounds out Gen 7, and we have got a weird, stupid, and entertaining one here. These games actually fixed a ginormous error with Gastly, and it's actually insane that it lasted this long before it was addressed. The thing about Gastly is that it is a poison-type Pokemon, who is known as the Gas Pokemon, but it could not learn the move Poison Gas by level up until the Let's Go games. However, what's even more ridiculous is that they actually removed this right after they added it in Let's Go, because with the exception of Legends Arceus, Gastly cannot learn Poison Gas by level up anymore in any of the games that released after Let's Go, once again with the exception of Legends, despite appearing in all of those games and Poison Gas appearing in all of those games as well. Sword and Shield offers a pretty fun one as well, as one of the gym leaders, and dare I say one of the most popular characters in these games, is Melanie. And one interesting thing about her is that she is the mom of another gym leader, Gordy. But Gordy is not her only child, as she is also mentioned to have 4 other children as well. These kids never appear in the games and are only ever mentioned, but they do actually exist, and they can be seen in Melanie's concept art. Since Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl are literally the same games as the original Diamond and Pearl, there isn't really anything different about them fact-wise either. But in order to cover them, here is a fact that technically does also apply to them too. In that aforementioned source code leak for Diamond and Pearl, we got a look at an early version of the player's trainer card, which showcased profile images of each of the gym leaders, which have some design differences to their final looks. Arguably the most notable one here is Crasher Wake, who sports a mask which covers his entire face, and interestingly resembles a Swampert, which ties in with him being the gym leader of the marshy, swampy Pastoria City. This mask was obviously removed in the final games, but a tie to his beta design still exists in the final product, and in BDSP as well, as his pants are still modeled after Swampert, having the exact same colors and even parts on the pants that resemble Swampert's fins. For as filled up with facts and secrets as Legends Arceus is, I have also covered a ton of them, so it was difficult to find something that I hadn't covered or seen covered before, but I was able to find something neat. The Miss Fortune Sisters, which are a group of minor antagonists that appear in the game, are all wearing parts of an outfit that come from the groups that they were originally a part of. Charm wears a Construction Corps uniform from the Galaxy Expedition team, Coin wears a part of a Pearl Clan outfit, which she was once a part of, and Clover wears the boots of the Diamond Clan. Additionally, it's mentioned by Volo that the Miss Fortune Sisters have raided the Ginkgo Guild multiple times in the past, and Clover can be seen wearing part of a Ginkgo Guild uniform, not only backing up this claim, but also making for a really nice detail. And last but not least, at least for the time being, we have Scarlet and Violet. The fact that I have here is pretty crazy, because it seems to be yet another hint and connection towards Unova and the Unova games, and possibly a new Unova game coming soon. The shiny forms of Koraidon and Miraidon, even though they are shiny locked at this time, are distinctly black and white, which is almost certainly a Unova reference given all of the other Unova connections that these games have, especially because Koraidon and Miraidon are these games' box art legends, just like Reshiram and Zekrom are for the Unova games, who are also black and white, which just seems to bolster the connections between these two regions and games even more, and it makes it even more interesting to see what is ultimately going to result from all of this regarding a possible new Unova game. With that said though, those were some cool facts from every main series Pokemon game. Did you learn some new stuff, or are you a smarty pants who knew some of this already? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more if you're new, because it really helps out. You can also further support the channel if you would like by listening to my Pokemon remixes on Spotify and other streaming services, which helps out a ton and is super appreciated. With that said, I'll be back soon with another new video. Thanks so much for watching this one, I really appreciate it, and until then, as always, I will smell you guys later.